Hello and welcome to the Castle Talk podcast, where we talk to writers and creators of today's genre worlds. From Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, author of the upcoming series Young Captain Nemo from Fievel and Friends Macmillan Books. Tonight, our guest is Kevin Murphy. For 10 years, he co-wrote and directed the Peabody Award-winning series Mystery Science Theater 3000, starring as the plucky red robot Tom Servo. He's done some really amazing projects like the Ultimate Movie Lovers Marathon, going to movie theaters around the globe every single day for a year, chronicling the event in the best-selling book A Year at the Movies, One Man's Film-Going Odyssey. He produced an album inspired by Rifftrax, his riffing organization that we're talking about today, and his movie commentary has been a regular feature on NPR's Weekend Edition Sunday. The new event we're going to be talking about is Rifftrax Live, 1983's Doctor Who film The Five Doctors, August 17th and August 24th at theaters nationwide. Kevin, welcome.
Hey, it is wonderful to be talking to you.
Oh, I'm really excited to. This is actually, I don't know. This is a weird geek's dream to be talking to you because I think your voice has been part of my life and a lot of people's lives for, uh, gosh, I mean, well, longer than I care to, longer than I care to admit, honestly.
Sure. No, I get it, and I
Oh,
appreciate that very much. It's wonderful to hear from people, and I've had that odd experience. I don't get recognized very often because I was always behind a desk or I had monkey makeup on.
yeah,
So there have been times
right.
like I was on hold with my banker, with my bank, and I was talking
Yeah.
about some issue that was there with a check or something, and the woman stopped me and said, "This is going to sound weird, but you sound a lot like Tom Servo." Yeah, I love that.
People used to write in on that show. You would often feature like pictures that kids would draw. Like
Yeah.
little kids would draw pictures of the robots. I mean, did it strike you as straight? I'm sure that there were people on TV and in the movies that you like were into when you were a kid. And did it ever strike you as strange to go, "Oh, I'm one of those guys now. I mean, I'm like somebody who's important to somebody else."
Well, to be on the other side of that, yeah, and it's sort of, in a way, it's wonderful. I mean, it's really cool, but it's also sort of daunting because you feel like you have a responsibility. People are now admiring the characters you've been working on and the things you do. And it's weird when the show first started. One of the things that really appealed to me about it was that it always felt like like a show that would have been done at your local TV station, which
Yeah.
is how it started. It was, started at a local TV station, but that feeling I think was really important. When I was a kid, I'd watch, there was creature features on WGN in Chicago and Svengoolie on WCFL in Chicago. So we had two late nights
Sure.
sort of hosted things, and Svengoolie was very silly and showed even sillier films. And so for me, that was the thing that got me really sort of excited about doing this, was just that it was going to feel like a cheesy local TV show and that people would be able to call and write in. And so that was always a cool aspect.
That's very cool. By the way, Svengoolie is still around. I think it's actually technically the son of Svengoolie, but
Right, it is.
the
He
puns
dropped
are,
the son of a little while
yeah.
ago,
I mean,
but
it's the puns are still. Oh my God! I mean, you guys worked extraordinarily hard. This is good comedy. Svengoolie, there's always sort of a goofy feeling of we're making this up as we go along, and
oh yeah.
hey, more power to those guys. We get them here in Denver. One question that I had, fans of Rifftrax, right? People who watch Rifftrax, which you've been doing for a couple of years, are fans of movies. And I get the impression you guys are fans of movies because you'll watch a movie, any given film that you're going to do, like Starship Troopers. You'll watch it probably more times than the actual producers of the film watched it. And I always thought it was kind of wrong to refer to what you guys did was like riffing on bad films because I would think there has to be some kind of affection for what you're doing. Can you talk about your strange relationship to the movies that you guys do?
Oh yeah, I think we have done just for our own discipline. I think we've also made fun of movies that we love, like Casablanca and Jaws and the Lord of the Rings series, and that's a particular challenge because you're going in and just sort of roasting the film like you would a friend or a celebrity. At a
Right.
gathering, and that's the way we want it to feel. Is that we love this thing, but we also want to point out there are certain corny aspects about this. There are certain things that we can just sort of deflate a little bit without actually ruining the film and the enjoyment of the film. it was always an interesting exercise. But we always dig in really deep when we come across a film that is really bad, not by intention, but by absolute lack of skill of the people involved. And even though they're trying to make something great, they fail and they can't see that they failed at all. And that's sort of endearing because they did their best job, and still it's cringeworthy. You know, that's the way it is with things like The Room and Birdemic.
Right.
Genuinely, somebody's try at doing something great. You know, Birdemic, James Wen, he's really trying to emulate his hero Alfred Hitchcock, and he just he's not Hitchcock.
Right.
He's not in any extreme at all. And I come by it a little bit honestly. You know, like I said, I watch Svengoolie, and I was as interested in the movies that he would show as I was the stuff that he did in between. And I worked on a cheesy, just out of college, worked on a cheesy horror film called, at the time was called Musky Madness. When Troma got a hold of it, they changed the name to Bloodhook. They thought that was sexier for some reason. But it's about a crazed bait shop owner who kills people and chops them up and feeds them to his prize minnows so that he can catch bigger game fish. So
sure. Right.
So I have
this was
I have
your
an
college
affection
gig.
for it and a facility for it. Right. Yes, exactly.
I am of two minds, because there are those ones where I always think about Ed Wood. I go through my life thinking about Ed Wood a lot, because Ed Wood, I can never tell. It seemed to me that he deeply wanted to make effective films.
Oh yeah.
And yet, his films, and so his films are very, very personal, right? And yet at the same time, they are, it's hard to make an argument that they're actually technically good. It would be hard. I have read actually one book that's sort of inspired, that thinks that Plan 9 from Outer Space and these others are the way they are because Ed Wood is doing some kind of an artistic performance that's all very deliberate. And I can't get there myself. I actually think that they're just sort of inept. But
I
it's
don't buy that for
interesting.
a minute because
Yeah.
I don't buy it for a minute because I've met a few of the people who have known some of the people involved.
Right.
And it's the same thing about Manos, the Hands of Fate. And there's no way. And I think the thing with Ed is that it's not that he operated under a delusion. It's just that what he saw was different from what we saw, because I think he thought those films were pretty damn good. I think he thought that Plan 9 was kind of a masterpiece in his own mind. It's the way it unspooled in his head. So it's, he had some sort of odd patois that he spoke in his own head as to what was good and why. Dana Gould, brilliant fellow, he occasionally, one of his little passions is Plan 9. And so he has taken the screenplay from Plan 9 and he's turned it into a staged reading. Invite a lot of really talented, interesting, funny comedians and actors to come on and do all the parts, and it's a full reading of the play, of the screenplay. They've added a narrator who gives the stage directions, and the stage directions get a little bit creative because it tries to explain away some of the things that went wrong with it. Well, and when you see it unfold in that way, you realize this is an incomprehensible screenplay that sort of made sense in Ed Wood's head at one time. But there's also something endearing about it because, he did create characters and some of them had a certain charm to them. But it adds up to just a head-scratching what the hell experience. And so it ends up being vastly entertaining when you read it in that context.
That sounds wonderful. I would love to go to a Plan 9 from Outer Space stage reading. That's brilliant. I
He's
pick
done
on
it
Plan
around
9
the
by
country,
the
and he's done it at San Francisco Sketch Fest quite often, and he does other comedy festivals, and you'll see it every now and again. So just you can watch for it. It's announced sometimes, but Sketch Fest has done it a few times, and it's always a different cast, and it's definitely worth your time.
you guys did Plan 9 from Outer Space as an episode a reason I bring it up is, there's a DVD people can get where the Rifftrax team does a full riff of Plan 9 from Outer Space, and you also did a live version. Is there a difference between because I think you did Plan 9 as a live show as well, correct?
Yes, we did. Yeah, the thing that it comes down to when we do a studio performance, we can pack a lot more into what it is that we do, because people are able to start and stop if they want to, and move back and say, "Oh, I missed it," or see it again, or hear it again.
Right.
When we do it on stage, hopefully if we're doing our job right, people are laughing, and so the jokes can't come as rapid fire as they do when we do it in the studio, because the crowd is laughing, and so we don't want people to have to feel like they have to shut up in order to hear the next joke. So we want the setup and the punchline and the laughter to unfold and just be its own thing, and then move on to the next. So we write much more lightly for the live shows, and just make sure that everything we do is polished. And we spend a lot more time and give a lot more care to the script of those live shows for that very reason, is that we know it's an experience for people in the crowd. And what we do, as it turns out, which is wonderful for us and for our audience, is that what we do is the funny is amped up when you go into a theater and you realize people around you are getting the same goofy references and jokes that you are. And it just sort of builds, and people laugh together, which is very cool and very rewarding. And that's really why I love doing these shows.
You always recorded the same theater? It seems to be one theater that I usually see you guys at.
Yeah, we generally have recorded at the Belcourt Theater in Nashville. It's the perfect size. The Nashville crowds are great. They're fun folks. They have a great time there. The company that we work with to shoot it and beam it up via satellite around the country, about 700 theaters, they're based in Nashville. So it seems sort of organic for us to go down there instead of bringing this whole circus other places. We've done that. Last year, we did a reunion show with our old pals from Mystery Science Theater, and we brought the whole circus up to the State Theater in Minneapolis, and it was great fun. It's twice the effort and twice the expense. So it always feels, for me, it's always a lot more relaxed for us to go there. We know the way it works. The theater's great. It's like our house, and that's a really nice feeling, and it's comfortable. And they dress it up differently every time, but it feels like our house. It's like, Ed Sullivan had the Ed Sullivan Theater.
I noticed the different. Yeah, you'll have the set dressing. You'll for if one show has a lot of cars, there will be a sort of whole car motif or beach motif going on, or so forth. It's a neat theater. Yeah. I've never been there live. I've seen it through film because I've been to a lot of the Rifftrax live events at various theaters around the country when you guys are doing it.
Oh, good. Yeah, and it's fun. I think it works because it does have that feeling of the live in the theater experience when you're sitting in your movie theater, especially if it's a full theater. Then it's terrific. Yeah. I've been to a couple of our encore performances. I try to hide in the back and take notes sometimes, but it's really fun to see it. I'm glad and I'm relieved that when you go to a movie theater and see it captures some of that experience of seeing it live, and that's our whole goal by doing it this way.
Absolutely. I want to ask you a little bit about process. I know you might be tired of answering questions like this from people, but I'm just trying to understand when you are prepping a show like this, because this seems to me, as a writer, this seems to be a very difficult thing to plan for. How many weeks or days or whatever is it, you get in a movie, like let's say you're going to do, I have no idea, Halloween. You're gonna riff Halloween. You get the movie in. How long does it take you to prepare that show, the script for it, the jokes for it? When are you going to be ready? If you were to get it on September 1st, when can you be confident, hey, we could go live and do a show on this?
Well, when we first started, we took considerably less time because we wanted to get a lot of stuff up on the site and get it out there. So there was a certain point where it was just Mike and I, and then Mike and Bill and I were writing the whole thing and turning it around maybe in 3 days before we were recording, and that's incredibly rapid. Those were like all-nighter writing sessions in order to do that. And now we have two very talented co-writers who work with us, Connor Lestucca and Sean Thomason, along with a host of contributing writers who write at home and submit their stuff to us. So we each take a chunk of the film and write our chunk. So what happens is that the writer ends up spending, say, a week with a 20-minute chunk of the movie we're doing. And that's, Doctor Who is actually a great example of that because, we're preparing for a live show. And again, we spend more time to prepare a film for a live show. We script the whole thing, draft it out, we meet, we read through it, we take notes, we pitch new ideas in places that don't work, we go back and do a rewrite, and then we come back again and we see if those new things fit. If they don't, we go back and do another rewriting process, and then the week of the show, we go through it one more time, put a final polish on it. So we will have drafted and rehearsed the Doctor Who by the time it comes out, it'll be 3 times through and probably 4 times rehearsing the whole thing. And then we go into the theater feeling confident in our material, and then we can have fun. Yeah, it's at least that many. Sometimes it's a little bit more, depending on if the film is problematic, like that wretched thing, Manos, the Hands of Fate, which is the bane of my existence, and I hope I never have to look at it again. It makes me angry to look at it. There's something dark and dirty about it. It just I feel awful after seeing it. And there are not a lot of films like that. Manos is one of them. The films of Coleman Francis are another one. They just made me feel sad and icky afterwards. And I'm glad we do to them what we do, because then it's a fun experience. But for me, the film itself depresses me, and I think that's why I react to it so strongly. And then it's a motivation for me to riff the thing when a film affects me like that. It's like the film has pissed me off, and I want back whatever it stole from me.
Manos, you actually did, because I saw the live Rifftrax version of Manos, and I think that the most notable thing about that is that it's extremely funny, and it is an utterly different version of the one that you participated in when you did it for MST3K. In other words, this is the same basic work. The jokes are all different. That's wild. I mean, that's quite an accomplishment to go through.
Apparently, we have a lot to say about this movie.
Yeah. I think I understand what you're getting at when you say you watch some of these films, that have come across your desk and you're considering using it, or maybe you're going to use it, and you go, there's something really grimy and grisly and depressing about this movie that I'm watching right now.
Yeah. And the motivation for me to do it then is that I really sort of hate the film and everyone who's involved with it, and I want to hurt them back somehow. And that works. I mean, it works with a certain type of film, and I think people do expect us to take that attitude. And when people say we're a little meaner than we used to be on Mystery Science Theater, we're still pretty much playing to a PG-13 crowd, except in the case of a movie that's already got sex and violence in it. But yeah, I think we feel a little more liberated to lash out. But we still bleep our own curses. So we're not that much nastier than we used to be. But then there are films like Birdemic, which we all kind of love because there's something really charming about it. Yeah. And that's a different sort of bad. And it's, again, none of these, I don't believe the so bad is it's good thing. I think bad is bad, and the only way that you can salvage it is doing something like what we do.
Right.
But there's a nice kind of bad, and there's an awful kind of bad, and so it's like bad nice and bad awful. I guess that's where I'd make the distinction, and Birdemic falls into that spectrum.
I think I understand what you get at. When you're saying there's nicer bad and there's worse bad, but what you're doing, this might be heady, but I'm just trying to figure out. I'm trying to find my way to the right question here. In a sense, is there a virtue in creating something good out of something that's bad? And is it in fact, or is it too arrogant to say I'm going to create something good out of something bad? I mean, am I instead, what is the artistic purpose of trying to look at something that is bad and make something enjoyable out of it?
Well, and without me trying to get too heady, I think part of it it's also the aim of people who do satire or parody, to take something that we know that we have commonly experienced and try to give it a new filter so you can see it in a different way, and point out things in it that are relevant to us now. Even an old film, we're injecting riffs that put the thing in the context of today and give you a new interpretation of what the scene meant at the time and what it means now. And we don't do this consciously. I think we're really trying to just make the experience funny. I've said before, and I think it was Trace Beaulieu from Mystery Science Theater who said it first, that the film is like our Margaret Dumont and we're the Marx Brothers. Okay, the film's our straight person, and we're doing what you do with a straight person. And so it's like an age-old vaudevillian, or it goes back to Commedia dell'arte, what we do. And I've pointed out before that the first riffing that I experienced was in A Midsummer Night's Dream. Primus and Thisbe is portrayed for the king and the court, and they're riffing it.
That's right.
In Midsummer Night's Dream. So we sort of come by what we do legitimately because of that. It's the experience that audiences have with seeing something on stage that's really not quite that good, and yet either having the grace to admire it for what it is, or to mock it when it really sort of, you're telling everyone, we all know this is bad, but we can do something about it, and this is what we do.
That's really right. I hadn't thought about that. Gertrude does the same thing, right? Where we're
Yeah.
watching her watch the play. That's
Yep.
interesting. Um, uh, I well, you know what? I was going to ask you about industrial shorts, which I think are my favorite thing to watch you guys do.
Yeah.
And it's so wonderful to watch. Actually, I am. Tell me a little bit about that. Then I want to ask you about Five Doctors, and then I got to let you go because I know that I've kept you on for way too long.
It's okay.
But in
Yeah.
industrial shorts, this is so delightful. How do you choose which one of these films just about how to live your life in the United States in the 1950s you're going to be doing?
Well, the process starts in my head when we pick them out. You look at it, and if I, for me, if I immediately start doing my job, which is riffing the thing just in my head,
Hmm.
then I know that it has the content and it has the structure that we need in order to do what we do well. Because one of the things that we need is we need space. And the nice thing about all these old shorts is that for some reason, if they're narrated or they have dialogue, they left a lot of space in there in between
Yeah.
lines. It's not like today you go to a feature film and it's either all dialogue or all action. There's actually space in here. It was the way that they used to narrate these things, and it's sort of like a pattern. So it actually ends up being, this old movie is giving us a setup, and then we have time to do our punchline. And so it's
Yeah.
kind of wonderful in that way. We've got, speaking of Doctor Who, we've got a wonderful short. It's a safety short. It's not quite an industrial short, but it's the same sort of thing. It ends up, the short is browbeating whoever its audience is. You're saying, you're really stupid, and this is why. And so I'm going to take you back to remedial class and show you how stupid you are and illustrate it for you. And then hopefully you won't be as stupid in the future. And we have a really wonderful one for Doctor Who. It's an English short. We have not done any of these before. We found a British short safety film that is just as, trying to
That sounds
instill a
fabulous.
sense of guilt and shame in its audience, and I love that.
You've come across all these really oddball, uh, arts and crafts kinds of shorts from the
Yeah,
1970s that
yeah.
are so it's so strange. They're like messages from an analog world. Like what
Very good.
what the hell we used to do back before there was anything streaming and any way to entertain yourself most of the day, and so, you're building things with pipe cleaners and egg cartons and so forth.
Right, right, yes. Yeah, and I got the feeling that a lot of those are from the company ACI, who did a lot of the same sort of conceptual art education films. And I just got a feeling that it was a bunch of grad students from education department and filmmaking from USC and Cal Davis who were getting stoned on a regular basis
Mm.
and were trying to look for something to do with their degrees. So they said, hey, we can make educational films and we can make them sort of cool. We can relate to the modern kids and give them something that that they didn't have back when we were young and had to look at the same shorts that you're talking about, the educational shorts from the 50s. So I think they did
Yeah,
that. Yeah, I think there's just a whiff of Northern California sensimilla around all of those art films. I always
really good
catch.
point. Yeah. Yeah, there's a groovy sort of modernity to them that yeah,
Yes, indeed.
that's an extremely good point. All right, lastly, the new show is 1983's The Five Doctors. Now,
Yeah,
did you actually go to Cardiff in some kind of preparation for this, or
we
some meetings
did.
about this, or what was that?
We did, as should be. The folks who do Doctor Who are very protective of their brand and their story, and they don't just want a bunch of jerks out there thumbing their nose at this and talking about how much it sucks, because it doesn't suck. It's corny. I mean, it's of its time, especially like the Five Doctors is like the culmination of a certain era of Doctor Who, in
Yeah.
some ways. And so, and I loved it. I came on with Tom Baker, like a lot of Americans did, and
Hmm.
I think a lot of Brits roll their eyeballs because they say, "Oh, Tom Baker, yes, everyone loved Tom Baker. What about these other guys? They were just as good." And so,
Right.
the discussion starts again because everybody has their favorites and they have their reasons why, and none of these reasons are wrong. It's like picking your
Right.
favorite pitcher or catcher from whatever baseball team you like. You're not wrong for liking this person, but there's something enjoyable about sort of laughing at your somebody else's favorite star of something
Yeah.
or favorite actor or favorite era of it. And it all comes
Sure, favorite
together in this.
James
So you get
Bond, favorite, yeah,
right,
exactly.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. I love the people who just. I've been in those discussions, and these are people who are of average or above average intelligence and sophistication, and they'll get into the Bond thing, and it can become, if you don't watch it, it can become really nasty really fast. But with Doctor Who, we're cognizant of the fact that this is very near and dear to a lot of people, and we're not going to break Doctor Who. There's no way. It's unbreakable. People love it, and there are reasons why people love it. But we can have some fun with it because especially when you look back at this old BBC era, when the stuff that was done on the cardboard sets inside was all done on videotape, and the stuff that's done outside was all done on film. And it's one of those things that snaps in the back of your head, and you understand it subconsciously. But it's always fun to point out how that it's a style that the BBC had at the time. That's how they did all of their shows. Monty Python was the same thing. As a matter of fact, Monty Python brought it up one time. A character steps out the door and comes back in and says, "We're being filmed out there." And then they walk back
that's
in. But you can see the difference. One 16 millimeter film, and one is very old school Vidicron sort of big fat tape videotaping. And it's got a style, and it's got a formula, and a lot of times it's people running around in narrow cave-like sets being chased by monsters, and so it was corny, and it's corny in a good way, and I think that's what we end up pointing out is that we quite love it, and yet it has a lot of room for having fun with it. And I think again this is going to be a roast of Doctor Who as a part of the culture, which would be fun to do.
I think it'll be cool for Doctor Who fans actually because, you know, you may have watched Tom Baker when it was on PBS. You know, back in the day when it was a little more difficult to kind of get your hands on Doctor Who, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
or your geeky friend in high school would pass you a videotape. If you're
Right.
my daughter, who's a teenager, she's all into Doctor Who, but classic
Oh
Who
yeah.
is still kind of an abstraction for her. So
Yeah.
this will be an interesting entree into previous incarnations that they aren't quite up on. I think that'll be very cool.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun for us because, again, most of the young fans of Doctor Who are fans of Doctor Who of today,
Yeah.
of Peter Capaldi and Matt Smith, and that's great. And so they will look at this as like an alien version of Doctor Who, a bizarro world version of Doctor Who. That
Yeah.
it has some of the look and the feel, and especially you get into the episodes. It's funny because the first Doctor reminds me quite a bit of Peter Capaldi. In the
Yes.
way he went,
Yeah.
he was gruff, he was curt, he was unfeeling of other. He was it seemed like he was insensitive to other people's feelings. He didn't think much of humans,
Right.
but he felt a duty to sort of protect them. But once you got through that rough exterior, there's a sensitive guy at the bottom of it, and I thought that was kind of cool. And that was the first guy, and so that aspect of the Doctor has carried through to this day, and that's a testament to the people who take it, and again why it's so important for the folks who produce Doctor Who to protect that and keep it going. I think they feel an obligation to their audience for that, and their audience is decades old. So
We're going to see that
pretty
character
cool.
again, by the way, I think for the Christmas program, for what it's worth.
Oh
That
yeah,
first Doctor. I
yeah.
mean, yeah,
I saw, and it's
portrayed by
Filch. I
somebody.
forget the actor's name, but it's Filch. Filch always looks like Filch, so what can I say? Whether he's on Game of
Yes.
Thrones or Doctor Who, it's still Filch in my heart. Poor guy.
Gosh. All right, Kevin Murphy. The event, the Rifftrax live event. Let me find the dates really quickly. It is August 17th, so it's 10 days from now when we're
Right.
recording this. August 17th, live nationwide. You can go to just look up Rifftrax live and or Fathom Events and
Rifftrax.com/live.
okay, rifftrax.com/live. Fathom Events is selling tickets. Basically, no matter what city you're in, you can probably find a theater that's going to be showing it. There's going to be the same show August 24th. That's a repeat of the show, but or an encore presentation. And I've often found myself at those, and it's just as fun. So people should definitely check that out. They can also go to rifftrax.com to find all of your previous shows. Uh, and are Riff Tracks? Is there any place else to find Riff Tracks, like on streaming or anything like that?
We have episodes on Amazon Prime. You can go there and look for them, and we're on Pluto TV, I think it's called, which is kind of cool. It's like it looks like your TV listings on your digital provider, and there's different channels, and there's a Rifftrax
Oh, cool.
channel on there. Yeah, and we still sell
Fabulous.
DVDs.
Fabulous.
We do it the old-fashioned way on our site, and you can stream from our site. We now have an app, which I think is kind of great. So no matter where, if you just find yourself in a hotel and one of the movies we've riffed comes on, like a Twilight comes on, you can just open up the app on your phone or your pad and hit play on the movie and on the app, and it will find the moment in the film where you are. It'll sync it up and it'll start riffing automatically. It's
That's an
astounding.
amazing technology.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, no joke. I mean, that is actually a pretty astonishing technology that it can recognize where it is in the actual film of Roadhouse and go, "Oh, I'm synced up now. Here are the jokes." That's a pretty
It's cool.
that's a pretty
Yeah,
amazing
it is,
thing.
and it's something that we've been hoping could happen, and it's taken a lot of work to get there. A lot of on the part of our staff and the other folks we've been working with, and yeah, it's sort of miraculous still for me. I can't believe it when it works, and I love doing it, and then I just sort of can't stop. It's a lot of fun. So we're happy to have that.
Well, Kevin Murphy, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it. It's been delightful to talk to you, and I can't wait. Doctor, it's going to be really cool. Thank you. Have a
My
wonderful
pleasure.
afternoon.
And you too. Thanks. Take care.
Ciao.